Welcome to the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast, episode number 125. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris. Thank you for joining us.
And I'm Jill. Chris and I are your hosts for this podcast and the founders of the Becoming Ellie community.
If you're wondering who Ellie is, Ellie was the Norse goddess of aging who beat Thor in a wrestling match. We decided to name our community after her because we were inspired to be more like Ellie.
And it's Becoming Ellie because we're always working on being fit and strong. You know, it's a constant thing.
You can find out more about the Becoming Ellie community and this podcast at our website, becomingellie.com. Ellie is spelled E-L-L-I.
Be sure to sign up for our newsletter while you're there. That way you'll know about new episodes and anything else that's new in our world.
Hey, Jill, we have an update from Deirdre Hewitson. We talked to her in episode 108.
Oh, yes, I remember. She was very inspirational. So let me just back up and say, I sent her an email and asked her how her year had gone after we talked with her. And this is what she said. I developed a terrible insomnia that I just couldn't shake for months and got a fairly bad case of COVID that knocked me flat for 2 weeks. And then it took me ages to get back to running fitness again. The insomnia had me sleeping when I should have been running and awake when I should have been sleeping. I focused on getting at least 10,000 steps a day. In addition, I made sure of small wins each day, eating a proper breakfast, journaling, and writing down a few things that I am grateful for. Those three small things combined made a huge difference. Once I started running again, my endurance and pace improved, and mentally I could focus on things I could be grateful for. So all in all, a dodgy year wellness-wise, with no great accomplishments racked up since we last spoke, but it is ending on a positive note with lots to look forward to in the new year.
Thanks so much for the update, Deirdre. I'm so glad you're feeling well enough to be training and doing trails again. And yes, I can relate to some trouble with insomnia and wanting to run again.
Me too. It's really tough getting back into condition following a break, but we're all working on it. I know I struggle with it at times, but good for you. And I'm actually going to think about those three things to do each day.
The journaling especially, I don't think of that often enough.
It's a good idea. So thank you, Deirdre. And Chris, we got another 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. This one is from Maria M. in Ohio on January 12th.
Maria writes, "This podcast keeps getting better and better. I have listened to this podcast from the beginning. Jill and Chris do a great job of finding a variety of guests who inspire and inform on nutrition, exercise, and more. Add to that Chris and Jill's curiosity and camaraderie, and it is just great listening. Every episode offers at least one and usually many great tips and ideas to help women over 50 start or stay active and healthy."
Maria, thank you so much. Finding great guests and providing tips, inspiration, and motivation is a big part of our focus.
Yes, and I think our listeners are really going to enjoy today's guest, Danielle Omar of foodconfidence.com.
Bring on the podcast.
When we surveyed women in our private Facebook group about things that they most wanted to hear in our podcast, one of the topics is easy, delicious, healthy recipes. So I started researching that topic, which, by the way, I am also very interested in. And I found Danielle Omar at foodconfidence.com because of her post about 5 sheet pan meals, and they looked really delicious. And once I started looking at her website, it got really interesting.
Danielle Omar is an integrative culinary dietitian, lifestyle medicine expert, herbalist, and best-selling author of the Super Green Smoothies cookbook. A passionate food and nutrition educator, her expert advice has been featured in the New York Times, the Washington Post, BuzzFeed, Fitness, Shape, and Women's Health magazine, as well as national television, including the Food Network and NBC Primetime. Wow. That's impressive.
You're not kidding. Through her group-focused nutrition programs and private coaching practice at foodconfidence.com, Danielle has supported thousands of busy women on their journey to becoming their healthiest self. Her unique approach blends 20 years plus of practice-based evidence with nutrition science, positive psychology, and the power of self-regulation. Danielle believes strongly in the heart-mind connection and our innate ability to create harmony in our mind, our emotions, and our body.
Welcome, Danielle. It's wonderful to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited.
I guess my first question is, what is an integrative culinary dietitian?
Right. Well, I kind of made up that term.
Oh, okay.
Sure sounds official to me.
Very official. Well, there are integrative dietitians. Usually it's, so there's a whole group of dietitians that are functional and integrative. I actually was the chair of our academy's dietitians in functional and integrative medicine. So it's a group of us who, basically work within the functional and integrative context. So we are looking at the whole body. And I would say most dietitians do this generally, but we have sort of a side interest in supplementation and more lifestyle aspects, mindset, sleep, lab testing, and that kind of thing. So I sort of took the integrative piece, but also wanted to marry my love for food and my love for cooking and my love for all things nutrition and food, and sort of marry those two terms to be an integrative culinary dietitian.
Excellent.
I love it. Well, because we often get conflicting information about what to eat and how to eat, I love the concept of food confidence. And can you talk to us about what food confidence means to you and the women that you help?
Wow. Okay. Food confidence. I mean, to me, that means just feeling, and it's very simple, right? Just feeling confident in the food that you're choosing on a daily basis that is going to give you the vitality and the energy and the nutrition, right? The health pieces, that's basically going to energize your life, right? So, most people feel overwhelmed with information. They come to me, feeling like I don't know what to do. I don't know what's right for my body. I don't know what to believe. Someone says this, someone says that. Eggs are in, eggs are out, dairy's this, all the things. So I like to get people to a point where they know their bodies so well and they know what their bodies thrive on, that there's no confusion. There's no nutrition confusion. They're confident in, I can basically choose something to eat that's going to support and nourish me no matter what the situation.
Oh, that's great.
Do you recommend that women eat a particular way? How do you help them figure out what foods work for them?
Work in their body.
Yeah.
Well, depending on how they're working with me. So I have a 21-day program that I've run for over 10 years that I use to sort of be the foundation for that. So it's like an elimination diet. It's nothing special. It's similar to your like Whole30, but not nearly as restrictive or rule-based or, you have to be compliant and all of that. That's not really my scene.
You will comply.
Right. It's like, I'm always like, I will not be at your door. I'm not the food police. Anyway, it's a way for you to eliminate the foods that are likely to be causing issues for you, so it's removing those foods first, getting your body sort of used to not having those foods, starting to like normalize, right? When you remove gluten and dairy and sugar and alcohol and packaged food and highly processed things that aren't, real food, like Cheez-Its and things like that, things that
Sure.
just like, I guess you could make a Cheez-It. I usually like to say, if you couldn't read the ingredients and make it yourself, we're trying not to eat those types of foods, but I have seen homemade Cheez-It recipes. So I'll have to stop using that as an example, but, just real food, right? So you take all of those things out that cause inflammation, that, cause sort of an imbalance in your body. And then you kind of normalize for a bit. That's why I do do it over 21 days, because it takes about that long for your body to kind of normalize and you start to feel better, right? So if you were having joint pain or digestive issues, or, I have a whole questionnaire that I fill out before, and then they fill out that same questionnaire, like a symptom questionnaire. So they fill that out before and then they fill it out after. And then they're like, oh, okay. I'm not having these weird things that I was having before, like that rash under my eye is gone, or, whatever, like it can be so many things. So that's kind of step one, is doing some kind of elimination diet or some kind of, mine's like clean eating. I know that's a bad word in these political parts, but, clean eating to me just means eating whole foods.
Yeah. Like real foods.
Like real whole food, right? I don't mean to demonize food and clean or dirty. That was never my intention. But so that's kind of step one, is like, okay, I know, like for me, for example, I always use this example. When I did my own program, I took out, you take out bread and then you bring it back in. And I'm Italian. I grew up eating bread. I'm like always going to eat bread. Thankfully, I have no gluten issues. That would just be terrible. I feel for everyone who has a gluten issue. Anyway, so I took out the bread. And then when I brought it back in, I realized that my body, reacted to like the sliced bread, like the store-bought sliced bread. It caused a sort of a GI response for me. Sort
of like white bread kind of things, or sourdough?
It wasn't even white bread. Not because I wouldn't have chose white bread. Like I'm more of a wheat, I would go for the whole grain bread. I would never have gone back to white, but I'm just making that point. Like I went back to like the sliced whole grain, what we would consider healthy bread. I'm trying to think of a brand, like Nature's Own, or, like the sort of store-bought soft bread.
Brownberry or whatever.
Brownberry. Yeah. That's what I was thinking of.
Like a bag of bread, right?
Yeah.
And
health nut.
Yes. And there's whatever is in those breads.
Because they must have some sort of additives.
There's something in there. I still haven't been able to figure out what it is. Yeah. That doesn't really agree with me very well. And I've tried to hunt a lot of different kinds, but I can get the baked bread, like you said, the sourdough baked bread, the artisan style breads, the ones that are made in the bakery, things like that. So just a little thing like that for me was, oh, wow.
So you were able to actually think about that. Like, oh, I just bought the packaged bread. Maybe and that's not going well. Maybe I should try the bakery bread.
Well, and for me, again, like I'm a nutritionist, so food is my thing. So I kind of always went with the other bread. Like I was always kind of an artisan bread gal, but I did have some sliced bread that I would have on occasion. And so, so it's kind of like being, you have to have kind of a curious mindset. You have to be in that sort of investigative kind of mode. Again, a little easier for me because, food's my passion and my business and my brand, right? But for somebody else, I do encourage them along the way. So in this program, they would take everything out and then systematically bring it back in. So I knew it was the bread because I was like, okay, today the only thing different I'm doing is adding the bread. And that's kind of how you have to do it. And to some degree, people have to do that for a longer time, depending on how they, what their symptoms were going in. But that's basically step one, is sort of figuring out what foods feel good in my body and, work with me in a way that makes me feel good. I don't feel like any food should be painful to eat. I don't feel like there's any food that you should have to suffer with, people might say like a guilty pleasure. Like I don't like those kind of words because I feel like mindset's really important too, which is the other piece to this. So it's not demonizing any foods. You said, how do you find your own sort of style of eating and get confident? That's going to be different for everyone. Not everyone's going to eat, as quote unquote clean as I prefer to eat. Some people really want to incorporate more maybe packaged food or convenience food or anything. I tend to eat more homemade stuff. I don't eat out very much. A lot of people prefer to eat out and stuff. And so all of that's included. Like, so what does that look like for you? Right? Because it looks different for everyone.
And some people travel. I mean, some people have to eat out a lot more than others. So
yeah, like for business or even on vacation. Like how do you want to eat on vacation? So instead of going on vacation and just like saying, screw it, right? And just going off.
Deep fried everything.
Right. Like, and just kind of having that mentality of, I'm going to go crazy here. And then when I get home, I'm going to deal with it. It's, there is a way to go into it and have joy around it, have joy, choose from a joyful place and enjoy those foods instead of sort of feeling like there's some kind of scarcity, like you have to eat all of it now because when you get home, it's diet time.
Yeah. How you think about it makes a difference. And that kind of leads into my next question, which is, how do you go about helping people who want to lose weight? And is there like a series of steps or a whole new way to think?
Oh, it's all of that, right? It's all of that. That's kind of the lifestyle medicine piece. It's not just what you eat. A lot of times when I work with people privately, one-on-one, it's a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 month process. Sometimes years I work with the same people because and sometimes we'll go for 6 months and we're not even talking about specifics of food yet, because it's so much about the lifestyle pieces and the mindset and your relationship with food.
Okay.
So you got to unpack all of that stuff. I like to look at it. Me and a client we're giggling because I have to give her credit. It wasn't my thing, but she came up with this great analogy of it's like an artichoke.
How do you mean?
Instead, because I used to always say you got to peel away the onion, and she never resonated with that. And then she was like,
maybe she doesn't like onions.
She was like, I don't resonate. She was like, I like to think of it like an artichoke. I'm like, yeah. So you're peeling away the artichoke to get to the heart, right? The heart of the matter, right?
You pull off each leaf.
That's neat. Yeah, I love that.
Isn't that great? And then also too, I also loved about it is that along the way, you're eating the leaves, right? So you're enjoying something along the way, right? It doesn't have to be this painful process of eating the onion. So, so that's kind of it. Like we have to start at where the most resistance is and what's getting in the way the most. And for some people, that might just be information, but it's usually not. It's usually more mindset and strategy and practicing doing some inner work and really looking at what your beliefs are and looking at where your resistance is coming from. Because a lot of people will say, I know what to do. I'm not doing it. When they, and that's so common, like, oh, I know how to eat healthy. And I say that all the time. Like most people don't need me to tell them how to eat healthy. Like most people know the basics of healthy eating. That's usually not the problem. It's the not doing it. It's why am I not choosing these healthy foods? If you don't unpack that first, then you're just going on a diet. And, that's not really, diets work, but they don't usually work for lasting behavior change.
Right. It's more of a lifestyle change.
Yes. And a mindset change. It's definitely doing lifestyle things for sure. Focusing on things like sleep and meal planning and priorities and, stress management, nervous system regulation, like all of those really important things. But it's also, and I think of those as lifestyle, but it's also mindset too, and believing in yourself and really getting to understand what your triggers are and, where they came from and all of that. So, because if you don't know, if you're not willing to kind of look at that, you're just going to repeat those patterns, so you need those strategies for those moments when you're driving home from work and you're like, I'm just going to stop at McDonald's or whatever.
Isn't it funny how different places as you're driving along, all of a sudden hit in the back of your head? I don't know. It happens to me. I shouldn't say you because I don't know. But for me,
oh yeah,
especially if I'm feeling stressed that particular day, all of a sudden I'm noticing all these restaurants that I really don't want to eat at because I know my stomach hurts after I go there, Exactly.
So why do you do that? That's what you've got to figure out. That's part of that artichoke peeling away.
Yes.
How do you get people over the all or nothing, being perfect, that perfectionistic type of thinking? And so there's a mental aspect there. How do you help people with that?
Yeah, it's, I think I wish there was a magic wand that I could just be like, you're healed, right? You'll never do that again. It takes a desire to do some inquiry into, like I said, why you are making those choices. And like I said, kind of what those triggers are. So for somebody who's all or nothing or a perfectionist, on or off track, there's usually, just from my experience doing this, I'm usually able to kind of figure it out just by asking them a couple questions. So looking at what the belief is around, if I don't do this perfect, what does that mean about me?
Yeah.
Does that mean, do I need to do things perfect in order to feel valuable or lovable or enough? Most of us have an inner wound of not enoughness. And usually if you dig deep enough or pull enough of those layers off, you're going to find that's at the bottom. So it's, we're all human. Like we all share these same sort of, wounds, if you want to call them that. So it's kind of just figuring out what it is for that person. And again, that's what kind of takes so long because it's a process. It's like it is sort of nutrition counseling, right? I'm not a therapist or anything. And a lot of times people are seeing a therapist in addition to seeing me, which is great because they're sort of learning about themselves while they're having these conversations, and light bulb moments are happening and all the things. So, for some people, it is that sort of, self-inquiry and inner work. And then for some people, it's way more easy.
Yeah.
And it just
depending
depends
on where they are in their mindset or their.
Yeah. Or they've done a lot of inner work already and are coming into this with like a little bit further along the path of, self-development. So it just kind of depends on where they are in the cycle for themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. I noticed on your website there, you mentioned metabolic mastery. Metabolic mastery? Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Metabolic mastery. Yes.
What is that? I'm not quite sure.
What does that even mean? Right.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
On my website, it's a course. It's a program that I have. It's a 6-week course.
See.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's the idea of it is around metabolic flexibility, which is what I'm trying to get people to create. So that course is about doing all the things that can help you to get more metabolically flexible. So if you're metabolically inflexible, you are hungry all the time. You wake up hungry. You're craving sugar. You probably have a lot of inflammation. You're probably eating a lot of carbs and sort of chasing your hunger. You probably have high blood sugar or some kind of insulin resistance brewing. You may even be pre-diabetic, may even be diabetic, right? So that's metabolic inflexibility, right? You're probably not exercising or moving your body regularly. You're probably not sleeping well. You probably have a lot of stress and your stress hormones are all out of whack. You may be also in like the 40s and be sort of in perimenopause and those hormones are out of whack. So there's things that you can do to sort of get yourself more metabolically flexible. And by that, I mean, you're not chasing your hunger. You're able to go a long time, hours without eating. You're able to stop eating at a certain time at night and wake up and not be starving. You're able to exercise without having to get low blood sugar or, needing to eat before exercising or right after, those feelings. So you're definitely stabilizing your blood sugar, stabilizing those metabolic hormones, learning how to sleep better, learning how to manage your stress better. So you're stabilizing those hormones. So it's all the things that are out of whack. You're sort of trying to get back into balance, which creates that flexibility. And by flexibility, I mean, you're more in control of your hunger and, I guess your hormones, you could say it that way.
Wow. All that in 6 weeks.
I know, right? Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't happen in 6 weeks, but it's a great start. So in that particular program, we look mostly at the lifestyle stuff. So we look at sleep, we look at stress, and those things are ongoing, right? So it's like, again, step one is just awareness, like, hello, I have a problem, right? And so a lot of those things are relatively easy to fix once you realize that you have the issue. With the food part, we play around with fasting protocols in that program and which help to rejuvenate your cells and help you get more metabolically flexible. And that could mean like intermittent fasting where you have a fasting window in your day, or it could be, other types of fast. So the fasting does help you become more flexible. So we're looking a lot at your meal composition and macros in that program. So that's not what I would probably put somebody to start, right? I would have them go into my 21-day program first if they're new to this work, because I want them to sort of have a clean slate.
Yes.
Because a lot of times if you've been eating sugar and you're sort of just off the rails, you can't intuitively eat or consciously eat if you're listening to a body that's inflamed and craving sugar and, sort of out of balance. You don't want to be listening to those signals, right? So the 21-day program sort of helps you to get more in balance so that you're listening to when you do listen to your body, it's coming from it's giving you healthier messages.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Fasting does play a role or can play a role in this and in helping you improve your health.
I do use it as a tool in my toolbox, right? With my clients and myself. Yes. I don't think it's something that you have to do forever. I think it's a great, like for me, I tend to do more of the seasonal fasts. I have a fasting program where it's more of It's a program where you can fast eating and you get to eat a little bit of food. I have a harder time personally going without food, but you certainly could. Like just a water fast, that's not for me. So a friend and I created this program where we're doing more of like it's like a fasting mimicking type of diet where your body's mimicking what it would feel like to be in a fast. You get into a fasted state, but the studies show that if you're able to eat some food in a certain macro range, you still stay in that fasted state and you still get the benefits at the cellular level. So that's something that you could do. Like I do that seasonally. It's just a 4 or 5 day thing where you're sort of following this protocol. A lot of people
you would buy the fasting kit and you'd get, I don't know, whatever food you got.
It's similar to that, but it's
okay.
Homemade food, right? So you're not buying.
That sounds better. Yeah.
Better. Trying not to say anything, derogatory.
It's not negative because people, there's a lot, people like to buy food online and have things shipped to them.
It's not like a cleanse, right?
No, it's a fast. I mean, I don't know what a cleanse is. Cleanse isn't really a real word. That's kind of
never mind.
No offense. I'm just saying that's not really like there's no real definition for a cleanse, right? That's sort of just a word that people use.
Yeah, it's like drinking a bunch of juice.
Right. Like it could be a juice cleanse. It could be a sugar cleanse. It could be it's kind of like detox. I use those words to mean a specific thing, but that's not really what I would say a fast is. I mean, you could say a fast is a cellular cleanse, but it's really more of a way for you to get into, to get your body into these metabolic states like autophagy that, they get into that state.
For the listeners that don't really know what autophagy is, can you explain that word?
Yeah, totally. And I'm just going to really.
Listeners like me, I couldn't define it. I sort of know what it is, but not really.
I'm going to simplify it. It's basically just when your cells are eating. It's like cell eating. That's what it means. Cell eating. And so what your body is doing is it's not getting any food. And so it's doing sort of a cellular, I'm really simplifying this. So nobody, no science people should call me out here, but it's basically going in there and saying, okay, we're not getting any food. So we're going to break down all of our cell debris and our broken proteins and our stuff that, the cellular waste that, cells that are just half functioning, right? All of those cells, they're like, we're going to break you down and we're going to use you for energy and food. And then that's kind of what it's doing in the moment. But what I like to say is the real magic of fasting happens after you're done fasting and you start to eat food to rebuild all of those cells that you sort of detoxed, right? That you cleaned up, right? So I like to say cellular rejuvenation, right? So, and there's a ton of really great research around this type of fasting autophagy. I tend to follow the longevity diet. Dr. Longo, he's sort of the person that kind of a leader in this field. He has, he's part of the group that created the box one. And, he has a great book. Yeah. I tend to follow his plan around that, which is basically a kind of a very more plant-based, not very high, kind of moderate protein for most people until you get to a certain age. But the point is that when you eat afterwards is when you're kind of rebuilding everything. So it's kind of a 2-part. It's the fast and then it's also what you do afterwards, which is important. You certainly don't want to go to, I always say McDonald's, but you don't want to fast and then go, replenish yourself with McDonald's or something.
Yeah. You don't want to get those cells back into the state they were before.
Exactly. Right. So,
or break your fast by eating a bunch of cheese and drinking wine.
Yes, exactly. That's a better way to say it.
There you go.
Yeah. But there's a whole fasting community out there of people. I tend to just use it as a tool in your toolbox because it's not for everyone.
You said you have is it a class that you have or?
My fasting program? It's called Fasting Plus Food. And it's a do-it-yourself course. It's just a protocol. So I give you the recipes, I give you the protocol, I give you all the directions. I have a Facebook group for support. And once you buy it once, you have it forever. So you can fast as much as you want. You can do it as often as you want.
Okay. And you said you do it seasonally. So does that mean 4 times a year, roughly?
Yes.
You do a 4 or 5 day
Yes.
fast.
Yep. Our program.
With food.
Yep. Our program is a 1-day prep, a 4-day fast, and then a 1-day post. So
I like that idea. Okay.
Yeah. It feels more doable.
That's nice to know, because I was trying to figure out how you could just make this stuff like that. They sell the box, and
yes, good for you.
Well, because I'm sort of cheap, but I like the idea of actually getting the info so that then I can just go out and do it, and I'm not relying on having to buy that box 4 times a year or whatever.
Yeah.
Good. All right. I'm going to check that out.
We mentioned a little bit about different ages, and does your advice for healthy eating change at all for women who are over 50? Because that's our podcast, is for women over 50. Can you talk about over 50 and how that might change?
And I would say most of the people I work with are 40 plus for sure.
Yeah.
So, I think if I'm working with you, one-on-one, I know a little bit more about what symptoms you're having, so if you're having, it's so, it's so one size does not fit all kind of a situation. So it really depends, right, on what you're doing coming in. Definitely for someone who's cycling versus non-cycling, I would say it that way more than age. Because it's not just like, at 50, everything changes. Because there's plenty of people who are still cycling at 50. A couple of my girlfriends are. I'm like, wow, you go, sister. I love it. That's great, because they're getting the benefit of all, that progesterone and that estrogen longer, which is great. So I would say it's more if you're cycling and you're not cycling, right? And so if you're not cycling, I tend to feel like, again, that you sort of, I feel like you have it a little easier, right? Because you're kind of past all of that stuff. And it's really just figuring out how you're feeling, what support you need, and then, creating a lifestyle around that. So again, it kind of depends. If you're not cycling and you're still having symptoms like hot flashes and things like that, there's some herbs I might recommend for that. I usually don't.
That's right. You're an herbalist.
I mean, I call my, I'm more of like an herb lover, herb enthusiast.
Okay.
But I tend to move, to not feel like every symptom needs to be fixed, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you're having this symptom. Let's look at and again, this is more of what the integrative dietitian or, person is going to do. They're going to look at the root cause. So instead of just putting a Band-Aid on the symptom so you don't feel that, let's look at the root cause of why you're having these hot flashes or why you're not sleeping. Instead of just giving you a supplement, let's try to figure out why you're waking up in the middle of the night. Let's try to reset your circadian rhythm a little bit. There's a lot of really great research coming out about sleep and the things that you can do to kind of reset your clock and all of that stuff. So I would do all of those sort of functional things before I said, let's just cover it up with a supplement. And some people, that's what they want, and that's fine. That's not usually who's attracted to me who wants to work with me.
You brought up inflammatory foods, and then there's also a lot of talk about having a healthy gut biome. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you have any advice for us on how to improve maybe how to reduce inflammation, but also improve our gut
microbiome? Yeah, that's huge. Again, so much research here too about the implication of these microbes, right? It's coming out that they're affecting more and more and more of our body than we even realized. I just read a study that they're seeing specific microbes in the brains of Alzheimer's patients. Like, I feel like, 100 years from now, it's going to be like, oh yeah, microbes are the problem of that's everything, right?
Yeah.
That's the cause of every chronic disease are these bacteria that are not friendly. So I think it really, really is important to look at that. So 2 separate things. So inflammation. So inflammatory foods would be your processed meats, right? Like, bologna and, sausage, and, things like that, sort of non-man-made stuff, right? I think it's easier for me to talk about, sugar. Sugar is an inflammatory food. So again, it's really too much of these things. Sugar in and of itself in a small amount, in a moderate amount isn't the worst. It's the natural sugars that are fine that you find in fruit and, even in like dark chocolate, the naturally occurring sugars are fine. It's more the fast food, the fried food is super inflammatory. Just fried food in general, not good for you. Even if it's fried zucchini, right? It's not really the best. Again, anything we're talking moderation, but if your diet is full of fried food, packaged food, really unhealthy fats, so, really high saturated fats or trans fats, or again, the types of fats you're going to get from fried food, from fast food. The industrial oils are thought to be inflammatory. I think there's some debate on that. So things like that. The things that are not inflammatory, I would say dairy is not inflammatory. I think some people have reactions to dairy, but I would not say, oh, dairy foods are inflammatory. I would not say that. There's definitely a place for that, for dairy. Again, it's more individualized. So the foods that are not inflammatory that sort of help are going to be like your omega-3 rich foods. So, fatty fish, salmon, mackerel, tuna, those types of things. Anything made with olive oil. So, an olive oil rich diet. It's great. It's just the Mediterranean diet. Like if you're just following those principles. So, I like to think of meat as sort of a side dish and not like half your plate, focusing mostly on fish and lean meats, some eggs, everything kind of like your protein's really more balanced, lots of vegetables kind of leading into your microbiome. So what's going to really help your microbiome are these prebiotic foods, which are like food for the good bacteria, right? So there's specific foods like onions and garlic and artichoke and things like that, but just high fiber foods naturally occurring, like the insoluble and the soluble, work together. So, all of your vegetables, your greens, mushrooms are amazing. All of the medicinal mushrooms like cordyceps and lion's mane and reishi and all of those, all of that stuff, which I love. Whole grains are fine, like oats and quinoa and farro and brown rice. What else? Fruits and vegetables, produce, all of that. I think most people know this. Anything that has omega-3. So like your walnuts, flaxseed, chia seeds, hemp seeds, all the great seeds, sesame seeds, pumpkin seeds, all of them. I think the chia and the flax have the best PR firm. Nobody's like talking about sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds, but I love pumpkin seeds. I put them on everything.
Yeah.
I like them too.
In a salad.
Oh, what about fermented foods?
Fermented foods are amazing for the gut, and again, it's kind of like you have to sort of ease into that stuff. I do want to say, like, if your diet is not very high fiber and then you're like, okay, I'm going to start working on my gut, you want to kind of go slowly, drink a lot more water when you start to incorporate more fiber. Oh, beans. I forgot to say beans. The beans are great, but, kind of do it a little slowly. And I would say the same thing with fermented food. So if you want to introduce fermented food, Greek yogurt or just yogurt is fermented, right? It's a type of prebiotic, I would say, food or probiotic. There's also sauerkraut and like kimchi and things like that are helpful. So for those people who are like, oh gosh, how do I eat that? You can just like take a spoonful like every other day. Stand at the fridge with your spoon, stick it in the sauerkraut, just take a spoonful. And the sauerkraut should be like the raw, fermented sauerkraut, not the kind that's on the shelf. Same with pickles, right? So pickles are great if they're raw and fermented. So you want to look for like Bubby's is a brand that does that. There's a lot of like Wild Brine is a great brand that has a lot of different fermented kraut sort of recipes that are tasty. There's like beets and stuff like that. So find one you like is probably step number one.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think it should be painful. And then there's ways you can incorporate it. You can put a scoop on your salad. You can, I had a colleague I saw that she had put like some sauerkraut on her nachos. Like she made nachos and then she put like some sauerkraut on there. If you don't like sauerkraut, I guess we're not talking to you, but for those of you who like it, I've seen it on like a toast, like an egg with like some sauerkraut on it.
Oh, wow. I never
avocado toast.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm thinking, what if you made like sardines and put some sauerkraut on there?
Oh, double whammy. Beautiful. You're talking to such a small part of the population.
I know.
That's going to eat sardines with sauerkraut. Yeah,
I can just see the face of the people who are listening.
Right.
Oh my God.
Oh, I'm turning this off. These girls are nuts.
But you're saying add just a little bit to sort of get yourself used to it, to sneak it in there, kind of.
Sneak it in there, because
if you once a day take your supplements, you could just sort of say, okay, my sauerkraut is my
Microbiome supplement.
Absolutely. Well, and there's not really great, I mean, there are the microbiome supplements, but I tend not to, there's the fiber powders and stuff, there's fiber powders is probably really the only thing that I would say. And so if you are really trying to incorporate more fiber in, like there, you could put those in your smoothie, right? You could put the fiber powders in. I've definitely made a lot of recipes with the fiber powder because I did some work with one of the brands that has one that I really like. So there's a lot of ways you can incorporate that powder like into regular recipes. I make like raw, like energy balls, like energy bites. I'll put it in there. I mix it into oatmeal. So anything that already sort of, I just kind of intuitively know like what this would work in, like pancakes, muffins. I've actually put it into stews and soups before.
Yeah. I was wondering about soups. Like if it gets hot, does that ruin it? No.
And I think it's fine. I think if it's really high temps, I'm not 100% sure, but just like stirring it into a soup is fine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have kind of a general question here, and it is something that I struggle with, and that is meal planning. Like, do you have sort of a rule of thumb about meal planning? Like start with your protein or start with your fiber, or how do you help people with meal planning?
Well, what's funny is I have a little mini training called capsule meal planning.
Oh,
so it's kind of like the idea of like, I would say somebody like you, it's perfect to start with this, right? You're certainly not a new cook, right? You've been cooking your whole life. You kind of know what you like. At this point, you know what you like and what you don't like. Yep. You probably have like a, sort of a core group of foods that
6 to 10 recipes that I make over and over and over. Right.
And the types of food you like. So so what I would say is think of it like a capsule wardrobe, right? Do you know what that is? Where you have a capsule wardrobe is where you have like a limited number of pieces, let's say 10 or 20 pieces that all go together that you can mix and match.
Yeah. I've seen that before on Pinterest. I didn't know it was called capsule wardrobe.
Yes. So
that's
it's
a whole nother project for me, but let's stick with food.
Yeah. Well, it's the same kind of concept. So you could say you have a seasonal capsule meal planning sort of way of, you can capsule meal plan seasonally, right? Because it's going to change with the seasons because different food, you want to eat what's in season. So right now we're in winter, right? So you probably are eating more root vegetables. You're probably eating more soups and stews and chilies and comfort food. So what I recommend in my course is kind of coming up with your style of the type of eater you are. And then there's a whole process for that. And then I have you come up with a couple of words to kind of define the style of eating that you are, sort of the way you like to eat. Do you like to eat your food like in a bowl, or do you like to eat it very separated? Do you like you had mentioned one sheet pan. Do you like that kind of style of cooking? Are you a casserole person? I'm a salad person. Like I need to eat a salad every day. Yeah. That's what I feel most satisfied with. So it's like kind of figuring out, okay, how do I want to eat? Like what kind of eater am I? And what does that look like? So kind of knowing that. And then kind of making it sort of a capsule style meal planning. So it's like, okay, these are the foods that I really enjoy eating and that I usually make in my 7 to 8 recipes. Right. And I want to branch out. So I'm going to, it does take a little bit of effort, right? I'm going to find some recipes that incorporate these foods that I love. And then I'm going to create my meal plan based on creating those recipes. Like it's really straightforward. I always laugh at people who think meal planning is hard. I'm like, all you're doing is writing down
what you already eat. Right.
Right. Like it's not that.
Yeah. Why should that be hard? But it is. I don't know why.
Well, let's look at what your beliefs are about that. Yeah. Like what is the resistance, right? So maybe the resistance is a great example of like how beliefs get in the way. So maybe your resistance to it is like you feel pegged. You feel like boxed in.
Stuck.
Like I don't want to write that down. I don't want to say I'm going to eat that and buy that food because maybe I won't want to eat that on Thursday. And I totally get that. That's why I like the capsule meal planning, because you're basically just saying, these are the foods these are the ingredients that I love. And I'm a decent enough cook that I know that I can have these foods in the house and I can whip something up. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause it's like, I don't want to figure out, well, today is a Wednesday. So I'm having this tonight. I like to shop for just the foods that I like and then decide.
Well, then that's
time. And that's a capsule. I'm already doing the capsule.
Doing it. Exactly. So it's like,
Cool.
So you can refine it a little bit for yourself and you can get more structured around it. You could get, I think it's a great way, if this kind of style of eating works for you, I think it's a great way to kind of be creative, right? Okay. Sure. I have sweet potato and I have some salmon and I have, these I have avocado and I have some cabbage and greens. Like, what can I make with that? Like, to me, that's fun. Yeah. And I get that your listeners might be like, again, we're out. We don't think cooking is fun. And so if that's not you, if cooking is not fun for you and, being creative in that way, well, it's the same thing then. It's just finding recipes that you really love. And for that season, kind of just rotating those. There's nothing wrong with that. I would just make sure you think about nutrients, make sure you are getting a good variety of nutrients, because that goes back to the microbiome. You want to be eating a variety. What they're finding now is that it's more important that you're eating a variety of vegetables and fruit and produce and greens and all the things than it is that you're eating quantity, right? So it's like, are you eating broccoli and Brussels and cabbage and asparagus and sweet potato and, avocado and different types of fruits? Are you varying it up, or are you just eating, carrots and zucchini every week? That's more of a problem than it is than the quantity.
Okay.
If you buy bags of frozen broccoli and that's all you ever eat.
Exactly. You're not
really helping yourself there.
Well, you're not nourishing your microbiome at all, because broccoli is great. It's a cruciferous veg. It's anti everything, right? But you're not getting that variety of different fibers. You're not getting all those different phytochemicals that are in the different fruits and veggies. And of course, the different fibers that are in those other foods are going to help feed the good bacteria. And, it's that, I think that's really I would say the first thing to focus on is variety. I'd rather you just focus on variety versus meal planning. Like, meal planning isn't really important.
Yeah.
Like, who cares if you meal plan or not, really?
So meal planning, the advantage of it though, is that you anticipate what you're going to eat so that you're not stuck with, so you at least prepare that you have the food you want to have in your house. So that on Thursday night, when you're hungry and you're trying to figure out what you make for dinner, there's something actually there that you might want to cook, rather than rummaging around and saying, hey, I bought this frozen pizza 6 months ago, but I'll just eat that.
Exactly. And again, that comes with experience and confidence, right?
Right.
So it's creating that confidence, which goes back to what we were talking about initially of, I would love it if I could get to all my clients to that point where they are consistently shopping. They know how to keep their pantry and their fridge stocked with the foods that nourish them and that they are comfortable cooking with, and that they feel comfortable just going in and whipping up a meal for themselves or a snack or a lunch. To me, you can always cook something if you're prepared, if you have food in the house. And so it's again, not so much about planning when you're going to eat the thing and, all of that, as much as it's, I've got the ingredients in the house to actually make something instead of, relying.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Beyond food, how do you help people live a healthier lifestyle?
Oh, wow. Well, I think it's some of the things we were talking about besides, working on stress management, right? Learning how to self-regulate. I talk a little bit about, I help people kind of do some breath work and just learning how to calm themselves down, and sort of get out of that stress state. So I would say that's important. I would say sleep is huge. Again, I mentioned we always need to be looking at how much we're sleeping, what we're, our sleep hygiene, how well we're sleeping, right? So if you have things to monitor that, that's great. So I would say sleep. I would say stress management, movement for sure, creating a routine that works for you, getting yourself moving. If it's counting steps, if it's doing classes, if it's just walking every day, if it's doing yoga, doing Pilates, or, things like that, biking, all the things. So living an active lifestyle doesn't have to mean you go to the gym, but I would say for your population, 50 plus, strength training, super important. Yes. You need to incorporate it no matter what any resistance you have, you need to get over it. And you need to create a way for you to lift heavy things, as they say, right? So whether that's at the gym or in your own house, getting yourself some free weights or some light equipment, but definitely keeping your body flexible, keep building muscle, that's going to help with bone health over time, joint health, flexibility, all of those things as we age. So I would say more important to strength training than doing cardio and things like that.
In our introduction for you, we said that you believe in the heart-mind connection and our ability to create harmony in our mind and our emotions and our body. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah. Basically it's very similar to kind of what we've been talking about. So it's doing the inner work so that you really get to understand yourself better. And I think that's really the most important take-home message is understanding what makes you tick and learning how to get into alignment with your true desires, your true self, and how do you do that? So it's taking the time to become conscious, right? Conscious of your thoughts, conscious of what you're eating, conscious of what choices you're making, and getting really curious about why you're making those choices, right? What's the triggers? What's important to you? I talk about your big why all the time. Like, yeah, you want to lose weight, but why, right? If you're not in really deep alignment with the why, it's probably what's been stopping you all of this time because your why isn't really strong. Most people are not inspired or motivated by, I want my clothes to fit better. It's something deeper than that. So it's really getting in touch with your deep, reason for wanting to live a healthier life or lose weight or whatever it may be. So it's getting, I have another program. I have a lot of online programs.
No, that's great.
Okay. I have another program called Nourish for a Healthy Weight, which is more about the mindset piece. And we talk about it's 6 masterclasses. And in those masterclasses, it's kind of the process of getting curious or getting conscious, getting curious, getting creative, being at choice, knowing you have a choice, choosing commitment and looking at what you're committed to, and then being confident. So it's the 6 C's. And I use them every single day in my life. I literally use all of those sort of concepts every day, in my own experience. And it's what I use with my clients. It's basically, the sort of the framework for getting your mind and your heart and your body all sort of in coherence together.
Great. Thank you.
Well, so sort of back to that is when you're making a change in behavior, you intellectually know that you need to change what you're doing, but we struggle with that. So how do you actually help them? I mean, you've sort of just addressed that, but how do you help others change their behavior? Do you have any tips on that?
I mean, it's a process, right? So I would say it's awareness, consciousness is number one. So it's like, again, hi, I'm Danielle and I have a problem, right?
Right.
Like it's knowing that you have this problem, being willing and open and allowing for yourself to sort of see what the problem is and why. So it's, again, being willing to peel away those artichoke leaves. So that's,
I just want to know,
awareness.
can I dip those leaves in butter?
You can dip them in butter. Do what you got to do.
Spinach
dip them
dip.
in whatever.
Okay.
Again, it's got to be joyful along the way, right? So it's creating this really, I like to say, having a partnership with your body, right? So I think over the years as women, we've sort of been in battle with our bodies, right? We want to tell our bodies what to do. This is how you need to be. This is what I want you to look like. And you're not good enough until you look that way. So I would say it starts with self-love. It starts with loving your body and having your body be your partner in life and respecting and having reverence for your body. You've got to be coming from that place initially. So I would say for everyone, it's getting to that, having that self-love piece be the driver.
Right.
You can't punish your way into or restrict your way or all the things, into feeling better, right?
Punish yourself into it. Right.
You can't punish yourself. And I mean, you could try, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work for behavior change, which is what you're asking about. So it's getting into your heart and really doing that inner work. And again, that's a process. So it's doing that inner work to create a relationship with yourself that's loving and, honoring yourself, being a partner. That's number one. Then it's saying, okay, from this loving place, let me look and see what's been triggering me, what's getting, what are the things that are getting in the way, like the beliefs, like we just did, right? She had a belief that she had to meal plan. Well, maybe you don't have to meal plan. So it's kind of, having these aha moments. Oh, I'm in control of my life, right? Like I get to do what I want. And then it's like this space between, like I call it the resistance gap. It's the space between saying, this is my desire. This is what I want. This is how I want to feel. This is how I want to look. This is what I want to weigh. This is how I want my clothes to fit, all the things, right?
Right.
Saying this is what I want. And then these are my beliefs about what I want. The resisting gap is all that space in between, right? That's the uncovering. So in that uncovering of that, you're what I call, you're sort of integrating. So you're in that mode of integrating. Oh, I see myself doing that thing. Oh, what am I believing right now? Oh, I'm believing that. Well, do I have to believe that? I could believe something else. Oh, look, I'm going to believe this and see how that feels in my body. Oh, I feel much better. I'm more aligned, right? It's going through that integration process where you're catching yourself, you're having upsets, you're getting triggered, but you're doing the work to say what happened there. And that can take years for people. It can take weeks, days, months, or years. And then once you've done that, you sort of, in terms of creating change, once you've kind of figured out that thing, then you've embodied it. So it becomes who you are. Use a very simple example of like making your bed. You could be somebody who wants to make her bed. And then you could do like months of work on looking at the beliefs of why you can't get your bed made, right? Maybe when you were a kid, your mom, you had to make your bed before you were able to go play. And it was just this chore that you associate with a have to, right? Instead of a want to. So you got to make that shift to becomes a want to. I want to make my bed. Why do I want to make my bed? And like, look at all of the beliefs and stuff around making your bed and then practicing making your bed. And then all of a sudden one day you realize, wow, I'm somebody who makes her bed.
I don't even think about it.
I don't even think about it. Right. So that's the process for any behavior change.
All right. That makes sense.
I wish I had an easier way.
Well, yeah.
And again, for some people, it is easy. Like for some people, there's a really short path between, wanting and embodying. And for some people, it's longer. It just depends.
Well, sometimes people will say, just start doing something and in 21 days, it's a habit. But yeah, I find that it usually takes more than just saying, I'm going to do this for 21 days.
I think if you have no resistance if you have no resistance to doing that thing, it can take 2 days.
Right.
It can definitely take 21 days, but it could also just be instant. If you have no resistance, it can be instant. It's just, what's my resistance to it? Right.
Right.
That's what takes longer.
Well, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about your website, because you have one of the most beautiful websites I've seen in a long time, and it has an extensive index of recipes. How do you decide if a recipe is going to go into your collection or not? I mean, it's beautiful. Is it like you decide how delicious they are, or how healthy, or how easy or difficult it is to make, or the macros?
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. My website's been around for a long time. It's gone through many iterations. And honestly, when I first started blogging, I was creating recipes. That's what I did. I just made recipes based on how I ate and what I was eating. I rarely said, oh, I'm going to create this recipe for this thing that I'm not going to eat. Right. So it was mostly my style of eating, which is, I know my 3 words. They're very, I'm very simple. I'm very not fussy, and I love salads. I like sort of cold food. I went through a raw foodie stage for a while. So a lot of the recipes on there are going to be catered toward like the way I like to eat. So it's plant-based for sure. There's some salmon and some other seafood dishes, but it's 99% plant-based. And then it's simple ingredients, simple flavor, easy to make. Like, I'm not a fussy cook. I don't want something that takes really a long time. So that's kind of how I go into my recipes. And I think probably a lot of bloggers are like that. Like, this is the way I like to eat. So, yeah. So that's it. Yeah. It's no more scientific than that.
Okay. I wondered. Thank you.
Well, there is, and it is really nicely organized so that if you're looking for salads, or you're looking for breakfast ideas or whatever you do, it's nicely organized.
There's the categories. Yes.
Yes.
I was in for a couple of years, I belonged to, like, early in the blogging world. There was a group that did a monthly recipe using a specific ingredient. And so there's a lot of, it was called Recipe Redux, and we were all dietitians. And so we took an ingredient and made a healthy recipe, and it was kind of a contest. So I do have a lot of those in there, which was great because it got me consistently blogging. So I would say that's kind of the way I eat. It's like, oh, I like this ingredient, and what can I make with it?
Yeah. Neat. That's a great idea.
And you have a cookbook called Super Green Smoothies.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to tell us about that? I assume it's all smoothies.
It's all smoothies and they're super green.
There you go.
So yeah, it was definitely, it's a smoothie cookbook with recipes that are limited to the amount of fruit. It's like one serving of fruit. So it's mostly vegetables and greens. And some seeds and some powders and things like that. But it's mostly heavy on the veg and greens and light on the fruit, but also tasty. So even if that's not your vibe, you could certainly use the framework and just add more fruit or whatever. But yeah, I don't like them super sweet. So that was kind of the concept, that they were healthy.
Well, I'm going to check that out because my smoothies in theory are supposed to be green, but they usually look pretty brown.
Yeah, sometimes they're not pretty.
Well, my green smoothies, I think I try to make them too healthy and I can't finish them. They're just like, oh God, why did I do it like this?
Well, I'm so glad you said that. So when you do that, you want to, you want to like course correct, right? So throw in something that always helps when you've done that is half a banana.
Oh, okay.
Or if you have dates, like a date or two. That'll sweeten it up.
Oh, yeah.
A half an apple is great. So, things that you might have on hand. Berries are not sweet. So berries are not going to sweeten anything up, but having just frozen bananas is key. And so anytime you taste it and you're like, oh, this is too planty, as I would say.
Yes, that's what happens. Too many plants.
Another trick. So either banana, another trick is protein powder. So you put in vanilla protein powder and you're done, right? Then that kind of
balances
gives it
out a little
perfect amount of sweet.
You advocate using protein powder?
Yeah,
in your smoothies?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a certain brand that you like?
I like to mix it up. Right now I'm in love with, giving Four Sigmatic a plug. So Four Sigmatic is a mushroom company. Like they specialize in the functional mushrooms, but they have a protein powder blend. And I love it because it's peanut butter flavored and I love peanut butter. So that they also have the vanilla and a chocolate. And I think they even have an unsweetened. I love that brand. It's plant-based and it has the mushrooms and the adaptogens in there. And I love that. So that's one. I have a couple that are more, you can't get them. I guess you can get Pure encapsulations. You can get theirs online. That's more of like a
they do free supplements, from, right?
Yeah, they do supplements. So it's very clean. It doesn't have any gluten or dairy or soy or any of that. I definitely go for the plant-based ones. I don't like the way it kind of upsets my stomach. I also like the collagen, which is not plant-based, but I also like collagen. So I mix it up. I don't like to use the same ones over and over. I like to get the different amino acids in there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And then this would also be a time when if you were using fiber supplement or fiber powder, you could throw that in there.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. I put a lot of powders in mine.
I've noticed that you have a huge Facebook community group. And why did you start it and what does it provide?
Oh my gosh, I don't know why I started that because I did it so many years ago.
Skip that part of the question then.
Well, I wanted, you know what? I shouldn't say that. I wanted a place. I started it because I wanted a place for all of my clients to go. So I had a lot of group programs and it was like after they were done, I wanted everybody to kind of still stay connected. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to make this free group. Everyone goes in the free group afterwards because I wanted to close down the group. Yeah,
the 21 days is over at the 21 days,
so
right?
Then they're gone, but I still wanted them to go in the community. So I started it that way. And then over the years, it's been 10 plus years. I've had that group. It probably should be bigger than it is, but, and so what do I do in there? I just, I just post recipes. I post resources like, links that I like or articles that I like. If I have a blog post, I'll tell them, there's a blog post up. I'll give them strategies, around holidays. Like I'll say, did you feel like you overate last night? Like for Thanksgiving, I just kind of show up as I feel, inspired. And people sometimes ask questions, or they post recipes. I'll do challenges in there. I've done salad challenges and smoothie challenges and fun things like that. So I do that probably like once a quarter. So I try to keep it fun and, a great place for people to get to know me, that new people that come into my community. It's a great place to kind of get to know me and my personality and, my services and stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So besides Facebook, where could our listeners find you online?
Online, you can find me on Instagram at food.confidence.dietitian, or just search my name, Danielle Omar, I'll pop up. And I do stories on there probably more than anything because it's easy. And that's it. That's probably the two places I show up mostly is my Facebook group. I also have a Facebook page and I'll post on there too, like professional page. But I'm mostly in my group and on Instagram.
And your website?
My website's foodconfidence.com.
Well, we'll make sure that we link to that in the show notes so that people can find it easily. I really want to thank you, Danielle, for being our guest today. It's been wonderful getting to know you and talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
It was great and so much good information.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
Wonderful. All right. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I really love Danielle's ideas about food confidence and, just all the different things that we talked about.
Yeah. I was thinking about it. Just the term food confidence. I like it. So many times I feel kind of insecure or not confident about some of what I'm doing necessarily. I like the idea of figuring out what works for you and being confident. We really have more things to do than worry about what we're eating.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of the veggie challenge that we did a while back. And I continue to eat a lot of the same things over and over again. Everyone's probably sick to death of my no panic potluck vegetable salad. But, it's something that I really love. And it's very much a rainbow of colors. And I'm sort of that way with soups too these days, really going for a lot of different choices, 8 or 9 or 10 vegetables at once.
That's great. So I found it interesting that she did say that it's more important to eat a large variety of vegetables rather than just eating the same ones over and over. I mean, that makes sense, but most of us,
too much broccoli is too much broccoli.
I think that's what most of us do. I've read that most people eat 4 vegetables and they just rotate them. And they're probably corn, green beans, broccoli, and
I don't know.
Something.
Yeah. I try to not focus on corn because it's so easy to get so much corn. But I will say after 5 years of doing this podcast, if nothing else has changed in my life, it's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of vegetables.
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, a variety. Yeah.
Yes. Well, if you're listening and you're interested in recipes, be sure to go to Danielle's website. I don't mean to fixate on this, but I just can't get over how gorgeous her photos are.
Right.
And she has lots of recipes.
Yes, I love her recipes. I'd love to hear what our listeners think and how they've figured out the best foods for them to eat. Let us know at our website or on any of our social media accounts. We would love to hear from you.
Definitely. You can find us at becomingellie.com or on Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Mastodon.
And be sure to follow us on our Facebook page and then join our private Facebook group where we encourage and support each other.
It was great talking with you today, Chris. I'm looking forward to our next episode of the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast.
I am too. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.